Brother, help me!
Long live the king.
Why do bad things happen to good people? This to me is one of the most natural questions that a child will eventually be slapped in the face with when confronted with the reality of the world. There comes a time when you are a little chickpea sitting in front of TV, blissfully eating a Nutella sandwich, and suddenly you say, wait a minute. Why is that baby giraffe being absolutely obliterated by a pack of lions scarce minutes after being born? And if you've been raised in a Catholic culture like I was, this is a world-shattering event, because there are two things that you know about God, namely that He's 1. Good, 2. All-powerful. So who's responsible for this?
I want to talk to the manager. Okay, 1 second. Hi, how can I help you? What the fuck is your problem?
Why is reality riddled with suffering, and why doesn't God prevent it? Welcome, my lovely people of the internet, to the problem of evil, the apparent contradiction at the core of many religious systems that has kept theologians up for thousands of years. My name is Lucia, and I am not going to solve this issue in this video, but I will investigate a teeny tiny fraction of this debate, because this is my channel, where I talk about art and philosophy, pop culture, and today, the devil. It's a bit ominous to make a video about the devil so close to Christmas, I know, but here we are. It wasn't on purpose, it sort of fell here when I planned the videos on monsters, on the monster series, so hopefully people won't read too much into it because there is no agenda here. Now, this video is really going to be about temptation and freedom. It's about Satan as a personification of evil, yes, but in its role as the great tempter. One thing that has always intrigued me and frustrated me is how in Christianity God is an ethereal, unknowable reality. A loving but distant father. A classic trope, we could say. You might spend your whole life trying to reach him and only receive ambiguous clues and signs, never fully seeing him. In the book of Exodus, he says to Moses, I will cause all my goodness to pass in front of you, but you cannot see my face, because no one can see me and live. And this is the Old Testament, where he is at least in speaking terms with his prophets.
I shall be with you, Moses.
But from the New Testament onwards, he seems to go missing in action. The devil, on the other hand, is always one bad thought away from saying, hey, what's up?
In the early Christian world, there really is that sense that the devil is everywhere, either in himself or through his kind of multiple minions, and that you can't trust the visible, tangible world.
There is such an immediacy to the devil in the Western canon. He's like that tan middle-aged couple across the bar giving you the look. Anytime, just say the word, we're here. It feels like it's so much easier to fall than it is to ascend. So, why does the devil, evil incarnate, embody this role? Let's dive in, shall we? Let's go to the basics first. What is temptation? The word comes from the Latin temptare, which means to bribe, to test, or to urge. Generally speaking, it refers to something that is alluring but has a catch. It involves an exchange of some sort where the tempted one gets something that they really want, but inevitably gives something away in the process that is equally valuable. One of the most common tropes concerning the devil in folk and pop culture involves selling your soul in exchange for wealth, magic, power, or other earthly possessions. In fiction, it's a moralizing device to caution people against corruption, such as in Faust. But historically, belief in such pacts contributed to terrifying episodes of mass hysteria during the European and American witch hunts. In contemporary media, it's usually used in a light-hearted way, mainly in the genres of comedy and horror. The West lives in a heavily secularized world, so the stakes are simply not as high as if we were all actually terrified of going to hell. Some are, but it's not that common. Yet it's still a very prominent narrative because it's central to Judeo-Christian culture. Temptation is at the core of the original sin. It's in the first story of the first book in the Bible, Genesis, and it's the root of 3 of the worst things humans have to do: working, giving birth, and wearing clothes. If you recall, Adam and Eve were created and lived in the Garden of Eden, happy, chubby, and naked, like God intended. God's instructions to them were clear and simple. You may freely eat of every tree of the garden, but of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil you shall not eat, for in the day that you eat of it, you shall surely die. But then one day, the serpent, which is not referred to as Satan in the Hebrew Bible, by the way, but as the craftiest of animals, approaches Eve and says, "You will not surely die if you eat the fruit. For God knows that when you eat of it, your eyes will be opened, and you will be like God, knowing good and evil." And this is very tempting. Knowledge is very tempting. Of course you want to be more like God, just like any child wants to be more like their parents. But disobeying God is the price to pay for the knowledge of good and evil, and the consequences are terrible. The act of eating the fruit is the origin of moral evil, the kind of evil that derives from the action of a conscious being. This plants the seed of self-affirmation and rebellion and freedom. Referring to Adam and Eve, Darren Aldrich says in The Devil, a very short introduction, God could not have constrained their free will without undermining his creation. The devil seized the chance to corrupt them. Thus, human freedom, goaded by Satan, led to a moral evil that God could not prevent. But, hang on, didn't we say that God is good and omnipotent? What do you mean he could not prevent it? Addressing this conundrum, authors like St. Augustine argue that God, in his goodness, endowed humans with free will and allows temptation to exist so that humans can resist it. He writes, "Without metaphysical freedom, the universe is just a divine puppet show. If there is to be any real creaturely goodness, any new and creative act of love, rather than the merely mechanical uncoiling of a wind-up universe, if there are to be any real decisions other than those made in the divine will, then there must be metaphysical freedom, and such freedom brings with it the possibility of evil as well as the promise of goodness." In these words, we can see that the value of being good derives from the possibility of choosing evil. If you weren't able to make a bad choice, you would not be free to do the right thing. One of the fundamental roles of the devil is to allow human beings to exercise their free will.
You're not just gonna let him die like that, are you?
My shoulder angel.
Don't listen to that guy. He's trying to lead you down the path of righteousness. I'm gonna lead you down the path that rocks.
And in the oldest texts in the Bible, he does that as an agent of God.
I've come to King's College in London to meet Dr. Sophie Lunn Rockcliffe, who studies the strange early days of Satan.
He's a bureaucrat.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, absolutely. He's a kind of an ordinary guy, and actually there is no particular opprobrium that attaches to him as an individual. He's just doing his job. Even the nastiest judges and torturers who are taking a bit too much pleasure in kind of stripping Christians of their flesh and burning them alive, so quite often you'll find a sort of overarching, distancing device of saying that this was all done according to the providence of God.
It turns out that for much of biblical history, he wasn't even an enemy of God. He was more like a cosmic auditor, testing humans under God's authority. Let's take a look at the book of Job as an example. In that story, Job is a righteous man, God's favorite. He has a big family and he is prosperous. At the beginning of the story, God and the devil are both in heaven. And God asks the Satan, which at this point is not a proper name, it literally means the accuser, about Job's devotion. The Satan claims that Job is only faithful because the blessings that he has received from God. So God allows him to test Job by taking away everything he has, his wealth, his family, and his health. But after enduring all forms of calamities, Job refuses to curse God, proving his devotion. In this case, the devil doesn't tempt Job by offering him gifts, but by taking them away, to see if his devotion to God is conditioned by material blessings or by an act of sheer free will. In these biblical texts, the devil is on God's payroll, so to speak. There is no contradiction in his role, as long as the maker retains some of the more severe authoritarian traits. But friction appears when we look at God as an exclusively loving figure, externalizing the punishing side. This makes him good, but it also undermines his power.
What triggers this need for these early Christian fathers to be constructing a devil that we might recognise today?
I think the need for a devil is actually quite an important theological and philosophical one. How does bad come into a good created universe?
Someone must be responsible for evil, and eventually the figure of the devil was crystallized as this independent oppositional figure.
When mystery plays were at their height in the 13th and 14th centuries, they reinforced an image of Satan in people's minds. The all-powerful source of evil, the ruler of hell, and a tyrant standing in opposition to God.
In the 14th century, Europe was ravaged by the bubonic plague, also known as the Black Death. It's estimated that the disease wipes out 40 to 60% of the continent's population during that century, and recurring waves kept decimating it until the 17th century.
Bring out your dead! Bring out your dead!
Death came fast and spared no one, innocents or sinners. Psychologically, this had a huge impact on the European society, devastated by confusion and grief and fear. The arbitrariness and the brutality of the pandemic faced society with an evil that was way beyond its control. And it's the same evil that permits baby giraffes to be brutally hunted by lions through no fault of those lions who naturally need to feed. It's absolute and nonsensical to the human mind. Moral evils, like war, can be explained by humanity's freedom to choose evil. But how can you explain the horrors of nature? Well, some authors also place free will at the center of that phenomenon, but not the free will of humans, but of the devil himself. Alvin Plantinga, a North American Christian philosopher, builds on Augustine's thesis to propose his free will defense. He claims that free will is precisely the thing that allows a good God to coexist with evil. Darren Ulrich writes on Plantinga's position, "It is logically possible for a perfectly good and omnipotent God to create angels with free will. Like human beings, such creatures would be capable of evil. They might also possess superhuman powers. It follows that the devil could cause natural disasters that a loving and all-powerful God could not prevent." I find this very interesting because the position of the devil has been completely inverted from that first account where he tempted humans under God's authority. Now he is a fully separate being who instigates evil precisely by virtue of its freedom. And I think this humanizes him and makes him feel closer, just across the bar, like I said at the beginning of the video. Because in these theses, he is not unlike humans, a creation of God with the ability to choose. And ultimately, perhaps we are fascinated by stories about temptation and redemption because they accentuate our perceived freedom. They face us with our individual power to choose good or not. Okay, so as I anticipated, we have not solved the problem of evil in this video, but hopefully you've enjoyed as much as I have learning some interesting things about the figure of the devil and its connections to free will. Thank you so much for watching. Please like and subscribe if you enjoyed it. I might take a little break after this just to enjoy some downtime, but I hope you have a very happy holiday and I'll see you again in the new year. Okay, bye.